here. There's 3 files on this flash drive.
Okay.
He's just got one right there. I'll get out another.
But there's some sort of SharePoint thing, and it doesn't allow you to keep permanent copies of stuff. So on the flash drive, there's 3 copies of the file.
So there's a picture, right? You want that picture on here?
Yes, any one of those, they should be the same. One we just sent via email, copy. That's what we want.
There we go.
Did we copy that to desktop and then remove this flash drive?
Oh, no. Okay, hold on.
Which one was that?
This is the one from the flash drive.
Because there's 3 other, but 2 of them wants to link back to SharePoint to City of Ventura, and won't let us keep a file.
Oops. Yeah, go ahead and take it out. Yeah, you're good. I'm gonna delete this one.
Got that going.
Is it on desktop? There it is.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. I just want to save that document, save it.
Yeah, it's on the desktop, so we're good. All right, so we're set.
Thank you.
You guys,
Three Mad guys could make the PC work. So. No, I'm familiar with the PC, but a lot of the mouse was giving me fits, the head trackpad was giving me fits, and I couldn't. It kept wanting to go back to SharePoint. City Ventura said you don't have access to the server. I have access to the server. So.
Interesting.
So we sent it to one of our friends, and he opened a secure server, copied the file, and threw it back to us. So.
Okay.
But it was.
We're good then.
So thank you. Sorry to interrupt your lunch. It was me. Sorry.
No, I know.
Told you what.
My little speech is going to be about active incident, and I do want to allude to the fact that Fillmore is the thing about their evacuation being lifted at 6 a.m. But again, through the patience of the community, they shut that down, and unfortunately 3 hours later, because conditions change so quickly.
And remember Fukutami's comments about saying the same thing over too.
Correct.
So we can't assume that all of these
Correct.
people know.
Correct.
So
Right. Right.
We need to come from
Yep.
that perspective.
Yep, that
as
it's
well.
still an
Maybe
active
double
incident.
information for
That's
people.
okay.
But
That's
we're gonna
okay.
keep saying the same thing.
Yep. Okay. Cool. And then we got you guys coming.
Good to go here finally.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Lourdes, voy a ser su intérprete. Si alguna persona desea escuchar la traducción simultánea al español, tomen los aparatos receptores en la mesa que está a mi lado derecho. Gracias.
It's always about the story. Here. I have one Cal Fire here. We're still waiting for Dave Russell. I talked to Patrick.
We're going to get started. Thank you all so much for being here. On behalf of Mayor Neil Andrews, my colleagues, council members, Heitman, Weir, and Nazarenko, thank you all for being here at this second town hall meeting. As many of you know, the fire took a turn for the worse overnight, and it's really barreling down on Santa Barbara as we speak. I know State Senator Hannah Beth Jackson and Assemblywoman Monique Limon meant to be here, and they've both been evacuated this morning. So if we can keep our neighbors and our friends in Carpinteria and Santa Barbara in our thoughts and prayers, I know they would really appreciate it. I want to start today by just referencing and making sure we're all aware that, you know, let me put this up. Sorry, it's on. There we go. It's better. Thank you. You know, in a week where we really did have a lot of positive news, we were able to lift all evacuation orders in the city, and I think you'll see there's a little fewer people here this week than last week. I think that's because a lot of people are finally back at their homes. But we've lifted all the evacuation orders. We were able to open in partnership with the county a local assistance center at Poinsettia Pavilion, which has already served over 1,000 people looking to start the recovery process. It really was a week of good news. But in that good news, we also received what really is the worst of news. Many of you may be aware that a firefighter, Corey Iverson, gave his life fighting to protect our community yesterday. Mr. Iverson was a young man. He was 32 years old. He left behind a wife, a 2-year-old daughter, and a daughter on the way. So if you could all join me in a brief moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. And I know that the city is going to make sure that his family knows that he died a hero, and he died fighting to protect us, and that memory will not be forgotten. And before we start the program, I just want to make sure that all of you as community members understand how much I appreciate your resolve this past week. It's been a tough week for everyone, and the amount of compassion and encouragement and love I have seen this past week among neighbors and among friends has really been uplifting, and it's given me a lot of energy and a lot of the drive I need to keep going, and I think a lot of people feel the same way I do. So thank you all so much for the resolve and the commitment you've shown to rebuilding Ventura. And I'd like to start right now by handing the microphone off to our first district supervisor, Steve Bennett.
Thank you, Matt. You know, tonight's going to be a long night for our neighbors in Santa Barbara County as they experience what many of us experienced here last week. While we're aching for them and we're hopeful for them tonight, at the same time, it's hard for me not to be inspired by what's happening here in Ventura County. The number of people that are stepping up, helping each other, strangers, neighbors, people are really capturing that sense of community that is just invaluable in a disaster like this. So for everybody that's inspired me, thank you for that inspiration. I also have been inspired by the remarkable speed of government officials, government employees, staff members, the quick decisions made by the fire chiefs and the chiefs of police and the sheriff. When we had the fastest moving fire in Ventura County's history, we also had the fastest evacuation of people in Ventura County's history. And that's because the city fire chief and the sheriff, the city police chief and sheriff, the city fire chief and the county fire chief, the four of them communicated so well that they made quick decisions and got people out. Subsequent to that, we're now having the fastest recovery effort that's happened after a fire, I think probably in the state of California, and that's just a tremendous amount of hard work as staff have tried to keep their regular jobs going and just poured enormous amounts of energy into recovery. So all of that is hopeful that we can build on, and while we hope for Santa Barbara County to survive tonight, we're well on our way. final thing that I would just like to mention to you, I've had so many residents ask me about debris cleanup. On our program today, we will have staff talk to you and give you lots of details about debris cleanup. But to the issue of whether you should participate in the municipal cleanup, that's where the government's going to come in and do it for you, or you should go on your own. I spent a long time with the state insurance commissioner yesterday, and he and his staff strongly recommend that you really keep alive the possibility of doing it through municipal cleanup. Until you get the exact details, until we have a contract signed with the appropriate agencies and we know exactly what the details are, you can't make a final decision. But he really convinced me that my advice to my neighbors is to very carefully keep that option open. And my office and our staff and the people at the Poinsettia Pavilion would be happy to try to answer questions. And we're getting answers every day as we go along in this process. We'll be happy to help you with that also. So again, thank you to staff and the city of Ventura for coordinating with the county. We need that coordination, and it's just been seamless all week. I really appreciate that. And if we can help anybody here in the room, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor. My name is Dan Pernick. I'm here representing the City of Ventura and the City Manager's Office. I did want to acknowledge Mike Powers, the County CEO, right over here. Him and I are counterparts and bringing all the resources to bear that we are able in our efforts to help you. If you just stepped in, I want to know we have a Spanish interpreter here. We've also got interpreter equipment down in the front, so if anybody needs that, they're available to come down in front. As we all know, just 12 short days ago, we had a disaster that I don't think this community has ever seen. I haven't done the research on it, but from what I'm told, it's perhaps the largest disaster we've ever had that's faced our community. So we appreciate your patience during this process. I just want to note that, since that time, you've demonstrated a resilience and a compassion and a generosity to your neighbors that has been unmatched. And as the city manager, I want to thank you for that immensely. With that, I know that you have lots of questions. We will be have a question and answer period time. We will put a time limit to that, but we'll get to as many of those as you can. We have city staff with vests on standing in the aisles. They have cards that you can fill out what your questions are. Just raise your hand and they'll come give those to you and bring them up to the stage here. We'll sort them by issue, and after the last speaker, we'll review the questions. If a city or county staff person can provide an answer, we will do that here from the podium for you. If there are any questions that we cannot be answered at this time, we will do our best to get the answers to you. We'll have them and we'll post that information on VenturaCountyRecovers.org. Again, VenturaCountyRecovers.org will be the website where you can get the most up-to-date information as we know. Just as a housekeeping issue, the restrooms are located in the foyer of the auditorium. And today we'll be covering information on reentering neighborhoods, public health, debris removal, watershed, and flood mitigation, and any questions on housing that we can answer at this point. With that, to get started, I'll turn it over with the latest on the Thomas Fire to Fire Chief David Ndaya and CAL FIRE.
Thank you, Dan. Last time I was up here, we had a little bit of stat on how many first responders were here and what we had done up to this point. You'll get a little more of that in just a moment from our CAL FIRE Deputy Incident Commanders. We've doubled this incident as far as first responders protecting our community and the communities around us. Obviously, the one stat that's changed is we had 0 fire-related fatalities last time I spoke to you. And that number has now changed with a firefighter fatality with engineer Corey Iverson. As a fire chief, there is no greater difficulty than to lose one of your own who put themselves into harm's way rather than fleeing from it. And I want to thank this city and this community for what you've done up to this point. I am well aware and will openly acknowledge that there has been pain, frustration, anger, a lot of processing of what's been lost, and we have done our best. At least I know I've been directly involved with my fire command staff, working around the clock literally since last Monday, to field as many questions as we could and to answer them as openly and honestly as we could, and you have been phenomenal. You evacuated when we asked you to, and you've exercised unprecedented patience in understanding that we have processes to get through to get you back in. So to the community and our city, I say thank you very genuinely from the bottom of my heart as your fire chief for being such an amazing cooperator in this disaster. I would like to take just a very short moment to recognize your fire department. It's not my fire department, it's your fire department. It's your Ventura City firefighters. And last Monday night, I didn't have a chance to speak to this because things were still so dynamic last time we spoke in this auditorium. But we had very few firefighters here on duty based on other incidents occurring and the fire actually starting in Santa Paula. And every member of your fire department responded. They came in from wherever they were. They staffed every vehicle we had. And for a city fire department that's only 6 stations strong, their performance, their courage, their actions, and their ability to adapt and overcome and make decisions. I was speaking with Battalion Chief Tony Hill just this morning in my office, and I sat back and I said, you know what? We may be a small department as it goes. We're not a huge municipal agency, but I'd put your firefighters up against any other department around on the actions they took that night in an unprecedented disaster, and I could not be more proud. And I hope you share that with me. And again, they're not my department, they're our department, and they'll be here for you for the long haul, as they've been 24/7. I find myself on day 12, admittedly, I'm a little bit emotional and punchy. Things are starting to get to me a little bit. And I know that Corey's death really punched me. And I want to make everyone aware of one thing. The city of Fillmore and the area of Grand Avenue that morning had actually been approved to lift those evacuation orders. So at 6 a.m., the community wanted back in, people wanted back to their houses. CAL FIRE worked diligently to get that checklist done, utilities were done, and they were trying to get people back in. But then the incident made a change. They looked at the weather, they looked at the fire behavior, and they said no. They stopped the community from going back in and said, we lifted it, we're sorry, but we're not letting you back in. And 3.5 hours later, Corey was killed in the fire in an area that had been approved. So I want that to really resonate, that what we do is truly for this community's safety. And keeping the community out of there and the firefighters in there resulted in the loss of a rescuer's life and the preservation of we're not sure how many citizen lives had we repopulated that area purely based on the fact that it seemed to be okay and not wanting to ruffle too many feathers. So we ask for your continued patience and know that that was a fact that occurred that morning and that we do want to get people back, and obviously it's been lifted. But I say that because if conditions change here in the city of Ventura, we're still in an active firefight. I know that's very hard to grasp when all the fire and all the news are in Santa Barbara and the outskirts of Fillmore. Ventura is not out of the woods, and it's my job to stand in front of you and take those barbs and put a bullseye on me, that I will take that responsibility to keep you safe, because I would rather have an auditorium full of relatively frustrated individuals who are safe to be upset than anyone who's going to get hurt. And I'll take that on my shoulders any day of the week, and I want to keep our civilian statistics down to 0. So thank you for your understanding with that. And with that, I do ask again for your vigilance. We are all first responders, everyone in a chair here and everyone out there. Please call if you see something, say something if you feel something's not right as far as danger, fire, smoke, anything. We are here. There are still engines deployed everywhere around the county. There are strike teams patrolling every day, including the incident as well as your fire department. And with that, for an update on the actual fire, some statistics and where we are right now, I'm very honored to have 2 of the deputy incident commanders from CAL FIRE First is going to be Chief Dave Russell, and also present with us today is Chief Ron Myers. So I'd like to welcome Dave Russell to give us an update on the actual incident and where it stands today overall. So Chief Russell.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Russell, and I serve as a Deputy Incident Commander for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 4. Currently, right now, as of this morning, the Thomas Fire was 259,000 acres with 35% containment. I think we were looking at maybe 40% due to some of the humidity recovery we received last night, which was a catch-22 for us. We had substantial humidity recovery over the fire, but we also had a forecasted wind event in the Santa Barbara County area just above Montecito that we were predicting winds anywhere from 25 gusting to 45 miles an hour. That was a huge concern for us because of the amount of resources in the front country as we move up into Santa Barbara County. We took our resources last night, briefed them again. Typically we'll do a briefing at 0700 in the morning to talk about the next operational plan for that 24-hour shift period. But we felt because of the situation that happened above Fillmore that we needed to really focus in on safety of our personnel. We did a briefing last night with them on the line at 1800 hours. Had a plan, similar plan as we implemented in Ventura County as we moved farther to the west. And those winds surfaced not at 0300 hours this morning, but more like 0700 hours, where the fire activity significantly increased and burned into the outlying areas of Montecito, where we had our resources deployed. The gusts that we were receiving were not the 45-mile-an-hour gust, but actually 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And this is most of the smoke and the ash fallout that you're seeing is from that fire this morning. Since the wind has died down to a certain degree, and based on our tactical plan that we had developed, they're getting back in and constructing some direct line and using aircraft to hopefully we can square that corner off and move further to the north. My message to you today is not just the fire stats, but the fact that in the news, in the community, and a lot of our focus right now as the fire service and the incident management team is in Santa Barbara County, and it is in Fillmore, and it's in Rose Valley. But the thing is that we are here to support, as the fires move past, we are here still to support the efforts going forth within Ventura City. We haven't forgot about Ventura City. We've been here since day 2, and we will be here till the end, and this fire is out. I can't say enough about the cooperation with Ventura City specifically, and Assistant Chief Matt Brock, who was side by side with us as a unified incident commander for the past 12 days. That communication that we have with Chief Brock, the EOC for the Ventura City, and just the police department and the fire department, we try to marry those together, different layers of government, so we send a consistent message to you, the citizens, so that one, if we have to evacuate, it's a clear, accurate message, and the same with repopulation. Once the fire has moved through an area, we still have our priorities, our firefighting priorities, but once we're dealing with the firefighting priorities, our number one priority is to repopulate those areas when it's safe to do so. So on top of that, we did, CAL FIRE, we did have an employee 2 days ago, fatality up in Fillmore. And the support from Ventura City, Ventura County, and all the locals has been outstanding. Corey Iverson is from San Diego unit, and it has touched many of us. So thank you.
Now we'll hear from Police Chief Ken Corney.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I just want to provide a real brief update within the city, and I want to start off with our deployment and what's going on. I know there's concerns about looting and other criminal behavior in some of the evacuated or recently repopulated areas. Beyond our regular patrol deployment, which can range from anywhere to 8 officers to 16 officers, depending on time of day and day of week, we are also adding officers to focus areas on extra patrols to the hillside areas impacted by the fires. We had the National Guard's resources until about an hour ago when they were pulled out to Santa Barbara, so we're kind of scrambling now to bring in people and to restaff the positions when we lost about 50 National Guard members back to the danger in Santa Barbara. Since the fire, we've had a report of about 14 residential burglaries in the impacted areas of the fire that appear to be related to looting activity. We have not made any arrests directly for those crimes, but we've contacted and made arrests where it was appropriate for other charges of over 70 people. And in addition, we made about 50 traffic stops in those areas with our focus area patrol officers. So we're doing our very best to keep the neighborhoods in there safe, and we'll continue to do that even despite losing our National Guard resource, which was helping with some of our static posts on checking residents' identification. There are some resources that are up in the hills right now I want to make you aware of is our clergy, Ron Matthews, the clergy member for the City of Police Department. Ron's here somewhere, but has brought together about a dozen other clergy organizations, and they're actually walking through the Ondolano and Clear Point neighborhoods, talking with residents and helping them along. The Red Cross has a client service center, which is at the Ventura County Credit Union today and tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. We also have some members of Ventura County Behavioral Health that have come to the area, the hillside that was opened up today, and will assist in helping people through the trauma of seeing their homes, many for the first time. Finally, and Chief Ndaya brought this up, but the concept of see something, say something for the residents in the area, and anyone who has an idea there's some suspicious activity or something related to criminal activity, we're going to need your help in the long term, and please err on the side of reporting it to us so we can respond and check it out. It's not always the thief we catch red-handed walking out of a house with the loot. It's oftentimes the traffic stop we make blocks away that can make a difference in putting an end to some criminal activity. Finally, similar to the fire department, I'm very proud of what the police department's done. There was 12 officers on duty at the time when we were asked to go evacuate the areas. They went in there. And I credit a few things with the success of our investigation. Was number one is the Ventura County Alert Program. And if you're not signed up, I said this in the last meeting, but make sure you sign up. You have to opt into the program, VC Alert. Number two is the police officers, firefighters, other public safety officials who were in the area hoping to evacuate. And then finally, many of you, and I've heard some great stories, some amazing stories from many people about helping to evacuate people, helping their neighbors along, including our Supervisor Bennett, who I know he's going to be mad at me for saying this, but just did an amazing job in his neighborhood and really helped save some life and property. But that is what a community is about. Let's take that inertia that we have, that pride that we have in our communities, and move forward. The recovery is going to be a long road, and there's going to be frustrations, but if we work together, we can make that another success. So thank you, and the police department's here for you. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Ventura County Public Health Officer Dr. Robert Levin.
Hi, I want to talk about re-entering your neighborhood, protective gear you should wear. This is really two different topics. One involves returning to a home that has been destroyed by fire. The other is coming back to an intact home that's surrounded by ash. First, let's deal with the home that's been partially or completely destroyed by fire. A health department order exists in Ventura County stating that if all or part of your home has been destroyed, you're not to go about cleaning it up. More on this subject in a few minutes from Chris Stevens from Resource Management Agency. You may, on the other hand, want to go to your damaged or destroyed place to search for valuables and mementos. If you do that, you must dress appropriately, whether sifting through a burned home or just cleaning up the ash around your home. You must wear an N95 mask, a long sleeve shirt and pants, and gloves. I would also wear a head covering, like a stocking cap, and heavy-duty boots. I'm concerned about your choice of footwear if you're looking through remains of your home, for fear that you might step on a nail. This can set up a serious bone infection. If possible, find a shoe that has a steel sole. When you're finished, wipe your mementos off with a wet rag. Gently dust yourself off outside when you're done, and remove your clothes and wash them in the washing machine, and then take a shower. Do not clean up while ash is still falling. Wait until conditions improve. The following is recommended for a safe cleanup. Avoid skin contact with ash. Although ash from organic materials like trees and brush is not harmful to the skin, ash from burned homes will likely contain metals and chemicals, items that may be toxic if breathed in or touched to wet skin. If you do get wet ash on your skin, wash it off. Logic dictates that the further your home is from structures that have burned down, the smaller the percentage of contaminated ash that will be present in what's falling around you. Inhaled ash may be irritating to the nose, throat, and lungs. No one with a heart or lung condition should be involved in cleanup. Avoid getting ash into the air as much as possible. If sweeping up ash, sweep gently. Avoid using any equipment that blows ash into the air, such as a standard shop vacuum or leaf blower. Instead, use household vacuums or shop vacuums with HEPA filters. Contain ash by gently sweeping indoor and outdoor surfaces, followed by wet mopping or a damp cloth. Ash may be disposed of in the regular garbage in garbage bags. You may also allow water from cleaning to drain into the landscape, because water with ash in it should not be harmful to your plants or your grass. But protect storm drains from ash and cleaning chemicals. Divert these substances away from the storm drains. Do not allow children to play in ash or be in an area where ash-covered materials are being disturbed, especially during a cleanup. And wash off any toys that may have ash on them before you allow your children to play with them. Clean off your pets, and then commercial cleaning may be needed for your carpets, upholstery, and curtains. Clean silverware, glasses, dishes, cutting boards, countertops, and cupboards where you think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levin. Ventura County Assistant CEO Matt Carroll is here to provide an overview of the Unified Recovery Program.
Good afternoon. As Dan said, my name is Matt Carroll. I'm the Assistant CEO for the county, and under the direction of our CEO, Mike Powers, I'm coordinating the recovery efforts of the county. And just know that what we're going to talk about, there's representatives in each of these areas on the city side as well. It became evident very quickly after this fire that this was an unprecedented fire after it started, and it was going to require an unprecedented level of formal recovery. And we put that program together a couple days after the start of the incident while the fire was still going. And as I indicated, it is a unified program. It's made up of city and county government representatives, and it has city representatives of all the cities that are impacted in one way or the other, either within the city or in their outlying areas. Its goal is to provide you the needed assistance to get back on your feet in a unified and co-located manner as possible. The most visible aspect of the program is the Local Assistance Center, which the councilman has indicated or shared with you. It's served over 1,000 different households, over 300 a day. It's located at the Poinsettia Pavilion, and it'll be in place. It's not going to be there forever, but it'll be in place till those numbers drop far enough off that it's indicated it's no longer necessary. Additionally, we have our website, which Dan mentioned, VenturaCountyRecovers.org. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But between the two of those are the most visible aspects. But underneath, the program is broken into 6 main discipline areas. And you're going to hear from a couple of them, the ones that are more near term and important to you today. Those areas begin with public information. As you know, the website, there's a variety of information on the website, starting with debris removal, moving through the life cycle of the recovery program. We ask that you register on that website so that although we may have the addresses of destroyed or impacted parcels, we don't have expeditious contact information. We have addresses, and we know many of you aren't receiving mail in a ready manner right now. So it's best if you register on that site. You'll get proactive information on the press releases, and we'll make sure we answer any questions that you pose on that website. And right now, I think we have over 600 individuals that have registered. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't had a chance to do that. In addition to the public information, we have debris removal, which Chris Stevens is going to talk about. And I'll share with you that the first step is the toxic waste removal. Just know that within 2 days after the start of the fire, Chris and his team had not only an emergency declaration declared, but the public health declaration, which allowed the toxic debris team from the state to be mobilized. And Chris is working with him and his team over the weekend and city representatives, and he'll share with you that they'll be here very shortly, early next week. We have the housing assistance, whether it's rental assistance because you're displaced, whether it's assistance because your home's been destroyed and you're looking at longer term. We have that housing program. It's under Barry Zimmerman, who will speak on that a bit here, who's also coordinating our local assistance center up on Poinsettia Pavilion. And then we have healthcare. As the last meeting we had, our behavioral health folks spoke. And as the chief mentioned, they are not only at the local assistance center for you, but they are at the entrance to the recently opened up areas. They were there this morning, and they'll be there again tomorrow morning. So as you're heading back up into those open areas, if you want to take advantage, those folks will be there for reference and access to. We have Watershed as well, and you may not think of... Okay. Watershed is a major component because, as you see, the hillsides are bare, and they extend bare for many miles in either direction. So any rain event is going to be significant. So we're starting with an assessment of the burned areas to come up with a mitigation plan to do what we can, and there's only a limited amount we can do in there given the nature of it. But you'll hear from Glenn Shepard in our Watershed Protection District, who will tell you about the plans and actions that are in place under there. And then we have our finance program, and that finance program is meant to track and recover from the federal and state governments your local tax dollars that are spent responding to it in a cost-sharing basis. But not only that, the finance program is going to look at additional sources of funding for various recovery efforts and assistance to you. So we have a team of grant researchers and finance folks looking under every rock to see what additional funding we can bring in locally to help you get back on your feet. Chris is going to talk a little bit more about the debris removal, but what I did want to point out here in the fourth row here is Maria Ventura, and she is your Southern California Gas Company liaison officer here today. And I know many of you are anxious to get your gas turned back on, and she's told us that it's very important that you be located at your house so that when they pull up, they can test it out and get you reconnected. Maria's got an orange vest on. Can you stand up, Maria? If you want to find out more about that or get an estimate and talk to somebody related to the gas company, Maria can help you there. And finally, the last thing I did want to stress again is please register on the Ventura County Recovers website so we know how to get a hold of you and we get you information as things change, because the one thing we can be sure is that things will change as we go forward. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Thank you, Matt. I just want to extend my personal thanks to the county and on behalf of our city council for all the support we've received from the organization. Thank you, Supervisor Bennett, as well. Appreciate it. We would like to collect the question cards now. So anybody that has a question and has filled out a card, if you could turn those in, I'd appreciate it. Our next speaker is Chris Stevens from the Ventura County Resources Management Agency.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about the debris removal process. That is something we began working on within a couple of days from the start of the fire. We contacted the state to get from them a description of the process, and it all begins with a formal request from the county for state assistance. We made that request the middle of last week, and as Matt mentioned, we issued our public health declaration. That is also a requirement of the process by last Friday, and have been working now over this past week with the State Department of Toxic Substances Control, which is a bit of a mouthful, so I will just say state from here on out, to coordinate the first phase of the process. And it is a two-step process, cleaning up the debris when a structure has been destroyed by fire. Step one is the removal of the household hazardous waste that might be left on the property. And that is a program that comes under the state. And we are scheduled tentatively now to have them here Monday morning to begin that process. We're very excited to have gotten them down here this quickly. Ourselves at the county and as well as city representatives will be meeting with them on Monday morning. And hopefully we will see them out in the community doing this first phase review. What that consists of is them coming to each of the properties with a destroyed structure, surveying the property and removing any visible hazardous substances. Those might be paints, solvents, pesticides, perhaps asbestos that they are able to visually see. They will remove from the property. Once they have done that, they will post a sign on the property indicating that it has been cleaned of those materials. They will go through that process. As I said, we hope they will start on Monday morning. We don't know the entire schedule that it will take for them to complete that work. We have well over 1,000 structures. We have, I think, something approaching 800 residential structures. There's a lot of work to be done. They're going to move as quickly as they can. And we're not entirely sure how the holidays will fit into this, but they've been very cooperative. As I said, we feel very lucky to have gotten them down here to the community this quickly. As you might imagine, they've been very busy in Sonoma and some of the other Northern California counties. But we've gotten them down here and mobilized, and look forward to having them here on Monday. As I said, it's a two-step process. The second phase of that is the removal of the remainder of the fire debris on those properties where a residential structure was destroyed. That program is actually a state program operated by Cal Recycle. We have, as we did with phase one, submitted our formal request for assistance to the state. It's important to emphasize right now that has not been approved yet. We're optimistic that it will be shortly, but it has not been approved. But if it is approved, I want to kind of describe for you how that process works very briefly. The Cal Recycle team will come down here. They'll have a number of different teams out into the community, and they will remove the remainder of the debris, which almost always includes the foundation of the destroyed structure as well. They're not able to be reused. And they clean the entire site. One thing that is required of the property owner for phase two that is not required in the phase one work is that there will need to be a right of entry granted by the property owner. There will be some forms, of course, for that. That's what we do in government for the property owners to complete, as well as some insurance information. But as Supervisor Bennett mentioned to you, if we get ourselves eligible for that program and they are here, we would really encourage the property owners to take advantage of that. Both phases of this project, the really good news is no cost to the property owner for that work to be done. So it can be an enormous savings for you. We'll have more information, particularly on the phase 2 work as we get going, and hopefully get that approval from the state. And also, once they come down to the community to do that work, the Cal Recycle team will have a lot of outreach and provide a lot of additional information about that. As you might imagine, that's a far more substantial level of work than just doing a review of the site to remove that household hazardous waste. But we've had a great cooperation with the city and the state agencies, so we're very optimistic that the work can be done in a timely manner. But we will keep you posted, and as has been referred to previously, our Ventura County Recovers website, we will continually try to post updates and information there for the community to refer to. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'd now like to call up the City of Ventura's Public Works Director, Mr. Tully Clifford, as well as Glenn Shepard from the Ventura County Watershed Protection District. They're going to talk about watershed and flood planning.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, following any major fire event, what we find in our watersheds, particularly with the steep hillsides that we have in the city of Ventura and in Ventura County, there's a potential for substantial flooding and debris movement following that should we get any rain. So we began the process last week of modeling the areas above the city of Ventura using the methodology prepared by the Watershed Protection District so that we knew how much debris we may anticipate, what the intense fire areas were, which could increase the amount of debris, and we're going to model what we feel will be the primary areas to expect debris. We will then put in place evacuation plans and plans to manage the additional debris that will come in that water. So please be vigilant and pay attention should you be in the area, as we may need to do evacuations. We will, however, also be trying to develop mitigation measures to capture some of the debris and in some cases divert the water. So we will work very closely on this with the Watershed Protection District.
Thank you, Tully. Glenn Shepard from the Watershed Protection District, a public works agency for the county. On a broader scale, the federal government through the U.S. Forest Service and CAL FIRE are doing burn assessments and the effect on the soils, which Tully indicated will update our modeling. But what I wanted to provide you today is that Ventura County has a flood warning system that you all enjoy, and it provides real-time data to both the city and county OES centers, and which provides opportunity for decision makers to decide whether or not there's going to be evacuations or what level of care from first responders is needed in response to a flood. I can tell you that we have 4 sites out of about 35 that cover this particular area between Ojai and Ventura, and 4 sites are down. The other sites remain to be cleaned and checked, so that they will provide and continue to provide this real-time flood warning service to the decision makers in the county and the city. As Tully indicated, modeling is being updated, and we will be consumers of the state and the federal plans as they become developed. And the primary mission going immediately is in response to rain, as this fire has obviously come at a kind of bad time. We're waiting for rain to come, and we know rain is going to come, and we've had little time to prepare for an immediate response. But the county and the city have endured many fires in the past, and there's great confidence in the flood warning system as it applies to getting you information in coordination with the National Weather Service, who also issues those types of warnings. Thank you.
And just one further bit of information. As you know, a year or two ago, we prepared for El Nino at the city, so we're quite prepared for flooding, and we are actually dusting off that plan, and that's going to be our starting point. So we will have our staff and our resources ready to go immediately should we get the rain.
One last note from me, VC Alert, please sign up for VC Alert. The flood warning system through the EOCs is managed, and your notifications are through VC Alert. Thanks.
Again, in the unfortunate event that we start to have rain in the forecast, I would encourage everybody to sign up for VC Alert. If we end up in a situation where we do need to conduct some evacuation around rain events, we'll be sending out immediate information through VC Alert, along with coordination with the Ventura Police Department. So everybody, please sign up for VC Alert. The good thing about the rain is we do have notice on the rain. So as we keep track of the rain and the weather, we will have advance notice for any additional rain events that we might have. With that, I'll turn it over to Barry Zimmerman. He's the director of the Ventura County Housing Agency. Thank you. Human Services.
That's okay. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Barry Zimmerman, Human Services Agency for the county. There's two activities going on right now just to keep your thoughts. First of all, we have at the Poinsettia Pavilion the Local Assistance Center, often referred to as the LAC. And up there is 20 different organizations, more than 20 different organizations to assist you in a broad range of information as well as access points that you may need. For example, there's 9 state agencies there. They can produce vital documents for you. For example, if you need a driver's license, they're able to produce that up there. EDD is there for now, so those that may have been affected with employment issues on filing UI claims. And there's also a waiver now on UI. The waiting period has been lifted, so you can file immediately for UI benefits. So there's various things like that. Also, what would be relevant to many is the Department of Insurance is up there. So if you have broad questions associated with insurance, they also give recommendation on how to access contractors and those type things that you'll need in the future. So there's a host of items up there today, and I just wanted to make note of that. If you have any passport issues, we have the State Department up there today, and they're there for a one-day period, but are able to remedy passport issues. Also associated with the Local Assistance Center and with the County of Ventura broadly through my agency, we're running a rental and a housing bridge assistance program, I'll call it. So those that find themselves in a situation where they have no other resources to secure housing or to bridge housing into a more permanent situation, we're able to take those people in and assess their situation and see what assistance we can provide. For your information, this gives you a threshold. It is an expanded program from our normal housing programs to what we would consider a lower to middle income class. So a family of 3 making around $108,000 would qualify for the benefits that we're offering at this time. So that's an access point up at the Local Assistance Center. Also on the VenturaCountyRecovers.org website under housing is all the other contact information associated with that program if that's not a convenient location to meet up with a social worker. So we'll leave it there.
Got a couple more things here before we get to questions. If Mr. Clifford could come up, he's going to talk a little bit about trash service and what's going to be going on the first part of next week in terms of trash service.
E.J. Harrison will provide extra pickups of residential trash barrels, that's the green barrels, on Monday and Tuesday of this week in the Ondalando and Clear Point neighborhoods. And those pickups are intended to assist with the disposal of spoiled foods from your freezer or your refrigerator. We don't want you to be putting fire debris or ash in your residential barrels at this time. Make sure you look at VenturaCountyRecovers.org for information of when that will be handled. Make sure that, like I say, put it in the green trash barrel. Do not leave your bags of trash outside those barrels. If you do, they will not be picked up. And do not put containers of spoiled food or other trash in your recycling or yard waste barrels. If you do that, they will not be picked up. Regular trash service will resume on Wednesday. And at that stage, you can put out all your barrels correctly and they will be picked up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tully. And just a reminder on Southern California Gas, you do need to be home when they do your work on your house, so I'd encourage you to speak with Maria and be home when they do that. Now we're going to get to questions. It looks like we got about 100 or so questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give each of the experts about 3 minutes. I've handed them your questions. They will do the best they can to get all the questions that they can get to. And if they don't, we'll be around after, and we're also available for phone calls or anything else to get to the rest of your questions. So we'll do the best we can to get through your questions. We'll go in the same order. I'll start with Chief and Daya.
Okay, if there's 100 questions, I think I did okay, because right now I have one. So either means you don't think I know what I'm talking about, or I did all right giving you info. This question is actually a legitimate question. It's what is left to burn in the hills of Fillmore to Ventura? And the answer is a lot. The way I describe that is this fire was so quick moving when it moved from Steckel Park over to Ventura. You got to think of it as jumping. It was basically leapfrogging itself because of the winds, gusts up to 80 miles an hour, an ember shower that was just unreal. So it was jumping ahead of itself and leaving actually a lot of fuel in pockets. What that means is if that catches fire, once again, that can create ember showers. Do we have a new, unfortunate, relatively decent buffer around the city? I think anyone who's driven around can see that black moonscape is not likely to burn again the way it did last week, or 12 days ago now. But the other piece of that is it's not just the fuel between the hills that we're concerned about. What we're concerned about is every single structure, tree, bush, branch, gutter, and standing home left in the city, because all of that is combustible. And under the right conditions, if we're in a red flag warning, and that's one thing I would like to state based on this question, is what's left to burn. What I don't want is complacency or any idea that we're out of the woods because we've burned so much in this city. A red flag warning is a very big deal to get signed off for the media to be able to say we are in a red flag warning. It has to be weather, it has to be temperature, relative humidity, sustained winds. But we've heard it for so many days in a row now that I think we're starting to go, we're in a red flag warning. That's a big deal. And what that means is if we have any new fire from anywhere, that can create an ember shower, and where that ember shower goes, we can have new fires. So that's my charge, and that's the department's, and actually everyone on the incident, is there's plenty to burn within the city and around the city, which is why we're asking you to be vigilant. So brush-wise, technically yes, and I'll take about 10 more seconds to answer a question I've gotten a lot over the last 12 days, and that was how come we didn't do more controlled burns to take out some of this fuel ahead of this type of an incident. We have been in an unprecedented drought prior to this incident, and for firefighters to actually put fire on the ground is an incredibly dangerous task. And it's a danger to our firefighters, it's a danger to the community, and the last thing we would ever want to do is be the problem. So you have to have basically perfect conditions to put fire on the ground to take out fuel around a community. And during our drought, we rarely, if ever, had those conditions all lined up. So again, for your safety, we did have several controlled burns organized by the County Fire Protection District, mostly near Barlow Canyon. We put those out in the media. We put signs up on Foothill because we knew people would be concerned when they saw the smoke. So we had several burns that took out several thousand acres around the city over the last couple of years, but during a drought, it is absolutely way too unpredictable and dangerous to put our city at risk like that. So we burned every time we could, and the drought really held us back. So as far as the fuel being there, we do have a buffer now, unfortunately, but it can be a positive thing. But again, my message to you is no complacency whatsoever, vigilance for the community, and understand that a red flag warning is a very serious thing. Thanks.
Chief Corney.
A few questions. The first dealt with insurance inspectors. Are they allowed on destroyed homes now? And what period of time might that be? And must they be with a resident? Today, for Ondelano and Clearpoint, insurance inspectors were allowed in with residents. Tomorrow, them and contractors will be allowed in without the residents going in. The time frame is really as long as it takes for them to do their inspection. I don't expect them to be there too long, but whatever it takes them to do it. We realize that the insurance inspectors have to do their job in order to begin to process your benefits. So we're more than willing to work with them and make sure it happens safely and efficiently. The next question dealt with what should we do to protect our house if we can't live in it yet, and if the windows are broken. I would suggest that you get a board-up service for any broken windows and board the windows securely. Then certainly, if you have neighbors living in the area that are there, let them know you're not around. And part of the response to this, I'll respond to another question which asks about how long patrols and the National Guard may be out there. We will be out there until we feel that there's no significant risk. We've had over 400 residential burglaries in our city before this fire. So residential burglaries are not, we're not going to stop them all in our city. We'll do our very best. Our plan now is the area opens up more, we will continue with the focus patrols in those areas. We will likely continue with a curfew in that area, which gives us a tool to look for suspicious activity and stop people. So if any of you are walking around and you get stopped by a police officer, they're just checking to make sure you're not one of the bad guys not supposed to be there. So that's our plan for both what you should do. Certainly suspicious activity, as I said before, should be reported. The final question, I'm sorry, I already took off my glasses, was interesting question I've heard a few residents say, and this specifically talks about the downtown area, but it said, how come there isn't a horn or loud device to be used to wake people up when there's a fire or some other disaster approaching? And there is not such a device. Of course, our police officers, our firefighters were using their sirens and their PA devices the best they could during the evacuation, but maybe something for the future for the city to consider some kind of warning device, as we have in case the dam at Casitas breaks. That's up and down the avenue into the upper downtown area. So that may be something that's possible for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Dr. Levin?
Wow, I got some really good questions. There's one question here I really want to read, and I think, I know the person's very, very serious, and it's heartfelt, but I think to others it may be something that's humorous, and so I'll inject a humorous note in it as well. The other thing about a lot of these questions is it's hard in 2 or 3 sentences to really frame your question and get the answer that you want. So if I or any of these speakers kind of go off the point, just remind us and we can, I think, answer online later. Is it okay for my cockatiel in Hidden Valley, when fire was first going, his nostrils were totally clogged? Now, I think there's a lot more to that question, so it's hard to answer. I'm a pediatrician by training, and pediatricians are oftentimes compared to veterinarians because both of our patients are brought in by masters and set on a table in front of us, and the person standing behind the table asks the questions and answers the questions. So I'm not surprised as a pediatrician to get a question about a cockatiel. And the answer is, I don't know. I guess what I would say is that if your cockatiel's still healthy and eating well, and you can, if you're away, I'm not sure if you're still there, but if the environment inside your home is clear, I think it's probably okay. I don't know how it's going to affect the cockatiel in the long run, having been exposed like that. My home is still standing. Are you testing the air quality? Is it safe to move home? I'm in Ondulando. And I think you have to base that question. I think Ondulando people are allowed to go back. I think there's electricity out in a lot of those places. It makes it uncomfortable to go back. I would just because you can go back doesn't mean you should go back. I think that I would think, twice about doing it if I were between two houses that had burned down. It's definitely less safe when the wind is up. Since we are told not to use blowers, how can or should we clean the ash off our house as we're getting ready to paint it? I would say this is going to be an answer to a lot of these questions. There are good professional organizations that do nothing but clean after smoke damage. And I would consider asking them in. I think if a bunch of homes on a block got together, maybe they could strike a deal with a person and get a cheaper price by doing it. And short of that, I think I would consider fully masked up and gowned, long sleeve shirts, everything I talked about. I would consider sprinkling my house so that things drip down the side. Normally you use a high pressure hose to clean a house before painting. I don't think that's advisable. What's the best solution for air purifying our homes, especially if stores are out? I think HEPA filters are good. There are portable units. And if they're out, go online and have one sent to you. It can be here in a couple, 3 days, I think. What are volatile organic compounds, VOCs? And what is the health risk? And how do we protect ourselves? I think it depends on what the volatile organic compound is. This is really more of a question for the APCD, the Air Pollution Control District. They can come out and measure air levels of things in certain communities. I don't think they can necessarily respond to a person, a family in a community, but if there were a bunch of people concerned and they could come in and take a representative sample, they might be open to that. Air Pollution Control District. Please address air quality smoke in Ojai. When will the smoke clear? Please address air quality smoke in Ojai. If you keep your doors and windows closed, you can do a pretty good job of keeping out the dense smoke that sometimes is reached in Ojai. If you can turn your air conditioner on to 100% recirculate, that will help because you'll be filtering the air inside and not bringing air in from the outside. You can get a HEPA filter for your home. As far as when smoke will clear, I think only God knows. One answer I've given to a number of people is between 4 days and 4 months. One educated answer was maybe we'll see clearing in January. How toxic is the air around burned houses? Do we need masks for initial visits? You do need masks for initial visits. Air around burned houses is that much more toxic if the wind is blowing and you're being exposed to the chemicals that are in that burned home. Will I put all of the tips I have on VenturaCountyRecovery.org website? And the answer is yes, I will. For the houses standing, do we need to do air duct cleaning, roof power wash cleaning? Roof power wash, please don't do yourself at this point. Again, professionals can do it, and I think you can research additional matters, and I will be looking into this myself so that I can do a better job of answering beyond just recommending professionals, or at least additionally answer. And that's it. Thank you.
So we've got to get about 4 more individuals to answer questions, and then we'll wrap up. Mr. Clifford, if you could come up and answer your question, I'd appreciate it.
I'll paraphrase the first one. Why are we street sweeping? That's a good question, and one thing we want to do is we want to get rid of the ash, the dust, and any debris off of the street so it doesn't get constantly kicked up. However, we are looking at how it's done because we've had some cases where they've gone out dry and they've gone out fast, and all that does is kick it up and make it worse. So we will follow up with our contractor to make sure that they're doing it at an appropriate slow speed and that they use water so that they're not kicking it up in the air. The next question is, what can be done to stabilize burned hillside lots? What we're doing in the city of Ventura right now, the city is actually going through and spraying on a material called Earth Guard. It's like a fiber matrix, so it forms a little bit of a crust over your property. So if you return to your home and you see that your property looks green, that was us doing that. And what we're doing is we're holding down the ash, we're holding down the dust. If you're looking for your valuables and mementos, you will be able to break through it and find it. After we go through with further debris management, and if your entire house gets removed, we will then spray once again to make sure that we keep the ash, dust, and debris down, especially to stop it from moving during floods. We've done a few neighborhoods, and if your house has not yet been done, you should be done within the next 1 to 2 weeks. We anticipate getting all the properties done within that time frame.
Mr. Zimmerman?
A couple of questions came up, and one of them I'm not the super expert on, but I think this has come up a lot at the local assistance center about FEMA and the potential help with FEMA. There's it's managed through Cal OES. There's an application that goes to the federal government, and that's the process we're in right now. There is a threshold by which the incident needs to reach in total property damage in order to qualify for what's known as a major declaration or disaster declaration from the president. And if that declaration comes, then FEMA resources will be available. FEMA resources come in multiple levels and different types. What we're looking for with the major declaration is what's known as individual assistance, which allows financial aid to individuals who are underinsured, have no insurance, or have gaps in insurance associated with the relief effort with the disaster. So temporary housing, those type things there. There's other components on the declaration if it's achieved on whether temporary housing can be accessed, such as trailers, temporary dwellings, those type things there. So at this point in time, no such declaration has occurred, but that is in the efforts and the process to go through. And matter of fact, on Monday, we're starting the final efforts there to culminate all the damage to submit the application to the federal government. Those who, one other question that comes, those who have completely lost their homes and have nowhere to secure housing or don't have a residence to go to, that is part of our assistance program. To meet with us and on a case-by-case basis. We are bridging temporary housing as well as securing longer-term housing for up to 6 months for individuals until they can work through their situations and come up with financial means or other methods by which they can sustain their housing. So we'll leave it there. The other one that came up also is many people ask, how can I help? We have volunteers asking on that. Right now, we are directing those to sign up for under United Way. Their website has a volunteer sign-up section, and we are calling the United Way for volunteers when we need them in the efforts of both serving people now in our mass sheltering, as well as when we get to the recovery stage, we'll be accessing them. Thank you.
Regarding short-term housing, I'd also like to note that the City Council has several ideas on allowing for short-term housing, and they'll be beginning a discussion of those options starting on Monday night. So we will also be looking at tools and opportunities that the city and the City Council can provide for short-term housing options for those that have been displaced. With that, we have 2 more speakers on questions, and then we'll close with the Deputy Mayor. If I could bring up Kevin Brown from Ventura Water.
Good afternoon. Kevin Brown, General Manager of Ventura Water. I have a few questions here. Two involve fire hydrants. First question was, how do fire hydrants work or had not been addressed? The fire hydrants, in a nutshell, and I'm willing to talk about this in more detail afterwards, works on either tanks, meaning tanks above you that provide pressure coming down, vertical tanks, or from pumps. And during this fire event, tanks were drained at a tremendous rate, power goes out, and we had to put pumps on generators. And during this fire event, the fire damaged the integrity of the water system. So the system became leaking everywhere across the board, from houses being damaged and also from more and more fire hydrants being opened as they needed to be used. And so also whoever wrote this question talked about the Solomar fire. So if you want to, I'd like to actually know more about that. If you could meet me over here, I'll be standing here just to address any of those issues. The other one was interesting question on adjustments to water bills due to fire hydrants not working. We have not discussed that. That's something we'll take on board, and we'll answer that question as we come along. So those are those two fire hydrant questions. Another one's on yellow tagged house, and if I was yellow tagging, I'm going to let Jeff Lambert, Community Development, talk to that. But customer service, and I want to emphasize, if you have any issues with your water service concerns, I have customer service working today and tomorrow. The number is 805-667-6500. That's 805-667-6500. And again, I have people working there today, and I have people working tomorrow, and of course all week long. But we're trying to make sure that we address all the issues as they come up to us within customer care area. And then last one was, is the water safe to drink? Yes, the water is safe to drink. There has been no bacteria. The chloroform levels are fantastic. Everything's working well with the water system as far as a cleanliness of the water, and it's very safe to drink. I'm going to cover one last question outside the water world, and that's because it involves a utilities question with cable TV. If that person wants to come talk to me real quick, I'm not a cable expert, but I can tell you that we haven't really talked to the cable company yet, but that may be something we have to look into. But again, I'll be standing over here. Thank you very much.
Jeff Lambert, the city's Community Development Director.
Thanks, Dan. A couple questions I got regarding the city inspections. And so just so you know, part of the recovery process is the city staff, we've actually brought in 10 or 12 inspectors from outside the city, are inspecting every house in the zone that's been affected by the fire. We're about 75% done those inspections, so some of you might see yellow or green or red tags on your homes. So one of the questions we got was, what happens when you have a yellow tag? How do you get it removed? So there's a couple reasons we would have yellow tagged. One might just be that your utilities weren't connected. So if that's the reason for the yellow tag, once the utilities are connected, we will remove the yellow tag. You can just call the City Building and Safety Office, which is at 654-7869. If the yellow tag was for some repairs that need to happen, then you'll need to come to the city and get permits to make those repairs, and you call that same number and we can walk you through that process. The second was, a question regarding inspections was, how do I get a copy of the city's inspections? And I want to tell you one thing first. We are also collecting all the city documentations on every property that's been affected by the fire. We have completed that electronic collection of that documentation. We are printing tomorrow. We should expect to send out a notice Monday morning of how you can come get a copy of our records that we have on your property, and that will be available probably at the local assistance center at the Poinsettia Pavilion in the next couple of days. That will include all building permit records we have, any zoning records, any requirements for how you go about rebuilding, and if we have archival plans, if we actually have your original building plans, we will make them available to you as well. We don't have the plans back from storage yet, but we have everything else that should be available to you later in the next couple of days. And if you do want a copy of our inspections that we're doing, call the number or let us know when you pick up the packet that you want the inspections, and we'll provide that to you. I think the last question for me was, any comments on the code compliance issues for old versus new codes? So as part of the rebuild, if you're rebuilding your home, you have to build under the current building codes. So many of your homes were built many years ago or decades ago. As you rebuild, you'll have to build under the new codes. I think you heard a little bit when we talked about debris removal that it seems likely that your foundations are not going to be able to be used. We'll know that more as we go through the process. But if your foundation was built in the 70s or 60s or even in the 80s, it won't meet current codes, and it's likely that that will be removed as part of the debris, and we'll be starting with a clear site going forward. Thank you very much.
So before we conclude, again, VenturaCountyRecovers.org, the local assistance center. You can interface face-to-face to get your questions answered. And then also City Hall is fully operational. So any of those venues, any other additional questions you have, we'd be glad to answer those. I want to also mention we'll be continuing to have evening town hall meetings as necessary. So as we get more information and we can share that, we'll do that. And also, if any of you have any input or suggestions, we'd welcome that as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor LaVere, and we'll close things up.
All right, well, yeah, thank you all again for being here. I just wanted to reiterate that on behalf of all of the incredible staff at the city and the county, and particularly on behalf of my colleagues on the city council here up front, please know that we are all here to help you. We want to help. So please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us. It's going to be a partnership and a true team effort as we begin this recovery process, and we want to be part of that team with you, and we are here to help you. So thank you for being here today, and let's all rebuild together. Thank you.